Hi, welcome to another episode of Coffee Break with Pam. Today, I want to answer a question that I've been asked many times during my session and the workshops. And the question is, what is the difference between ICP, which is ideal customer profile, and a buyer's persona? And when and where to use ICP and a buyer persona? I think these two are very good questions, and many people are confused by these two definitions. So I want to clarify that and also show you when you can use that. Therefore, in today's video, I'll cover the differences between the two. I will also provide easy to use templates, so you can take the templates and run with that. Lastly, I will give specific examples when to use ICP and the buyer persona. Okay? By the way, my coffee break is syndicated on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. If you missed any of my live streams, no problem. You can always go back and check out my archive, a recorded video on the Pam Didner YouTube channel. For example, I recently talked about how to avoid imposter syndrome. I have it. And how to increase your emotional intelligence, which is I had a low emotional intelligence. I cannot pick up what people were saying, sometimes. And I provide some short and sweet actionable tips based on my experience of learning how to avoid imposter syndrome and also increase my emotional intelligence. So check these videos out. If you like the way I explain things, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and comments below. I love to hear from you. So what are the differences between ICP and the buyer personas? Here is a short and a sweet definition. ICP is a description of the type of company in your salespeople's mind. Is usually about accounts that you want to sell to, your company want to sell to. Buyer persona is a description of potential buyers or people may influence these buyers that you want to market to. ICP is more about companies. Buyer's persona is more about your customers. So that's the quick definition and also the major differences between the two. So ICP is more about accounts, the company's firmographics, and the technographics. So what do we mean by firmographics? It refers to companies' attributes such as the company size, annual revenue, headcount, industry segments, etc. Technographics, meanwhile, refers to the types of technologies that the companies use. For example, if your product can only be integrated with Salesforce.com, if you know a company's technographics, you can quickly make a decision whether or not you want to engage with them. Technographic intelligence can also help marketing qualify leads before they pass that to the sales team. So ICP hones in on firmographics and technographics in an effort to gather company intelligence. Buyer persona is about understanding a specific segment of people that will buy from you or you want to sell to. Now, here are two templates I want to share with you. The first one is ICP. Okay, take a look at this template. Started with the industry, right? You identify a specific industry that the segments that will buy, industry segment that will buy from you. And it can be manufacturing segment. The annual revenue or the company that tend to buy from you, their revenue is usually around $20 to $50 million. The company headcount is 100 to 500. The geographies or the country that you want to sell to, or you have a sales presence, US, UK, and Germany, right? The job titles that salespeople need to engage to make sure that you can close the deal with them is CIO, CFO, IT directors, and accounting managers supporting sales, for example. And the software you tend to sell is probably on the high end because it's used by enterprises. And the budget that you are looking for the company to have a budget is about $20,000 to $100,000, depending on, say, the licensing of the users. And the technology they must have, or technology that needs to be used in the context, the solution that you will provide, they needs to be on salesforce.com. Okay. Then you also identify the pain points and challenges in the areas that you can solve. That possibly can be lack of integration between accounting customer database and the CRM, or the information on the accounting customer database needs to be pulled into the CRM. And that's because the salespeople would like to see the existing booking and also PO placement in the CRM, so they don't have to log into accounting software. So you kind of see that you created this ideal customer profile, right, to share with your salespeople. And this is the information you can also use as a part of marketing communication. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. Another thing I want to call it out, job titles in ICP, they don't necessarily equate to buyer persona. Again, I want to say that one more time. The job titles you identify in ICP, which is the previous template, it does not necessarily equate to buyer persona. Sales can have a list of job titles that they want to engage with or talk to. That doesn't mean marketing needs to market to every single job title in ICP. I want to make that very, very clear. Job title on ICP and the customers that marketing wants to market are two separate strategic discussions. It's important that you and the salespeople are aligned and reach some sort of agreement in terms of what are some of the buyer's persona that you want to market to. And hopefully it's also part of the job title within the ICP, but it doesn't have to encompass the whole job titles within ICP. That has a lot to do with the marketing has a finite marketing budget and resources. And you need to choose what you should market to, so you're going to get the biggest bang for the buck. So in this specific case, you probably choose to market to CIO, because that's really a decision maker, because CIO will need to buy the solution, not necessarily the CFO. Therefore, the CFO is an influencer. Marketing may decide to create a buyer persona for their marketing outreach that specifically just zero into CIO, not necessarily CFO. But you need to communicate that decision with your sales team. Again, job titles in ICP don't necessarily equate to buyer's persona. All right. Okay, so I would like to share with you the buyer persona template, as you can see on my screen. Here is a great example of a persona template I use all the time because it's just one slide, which is one pager. You start by giving the persona a name, which is CIO Charles. And you also have a picture that people can make an emotional connection to. And then you have a demographic information in terms of age, the family situation, are they married or not married, and possibly where they live. That will indicate, like, in terms of where most of the company you sell to, they tend to be in the city or the rural area. So you have a demographic information. And then you start, and you also have a personality traits, right? They tend to be probably very data driven. They probably risk averse. What kind of personality trait that this person actually possess. And also, of course, on this specific slide, in the big chunk of it, you're going to describe what does he do, right? And what are some of his goals and aspirations, and also some of their challenges. Right? Their challenges is probably lack of budget, and they need to do more with less. So you need to write it in a way that will give you some ideas in terms of what this person is about, and also what are some of the emotional pinpoints, what are some of their goals they want to accomplish. All right, so that is a template for buyer persona. Now you understand the differences between ICP and the buyer's persona. I also show you the templates, how you can create ICP and the buyer persona. The next topic I would like to address is, okay, when should we use ICP and buyer's persona? Okay, that's actually a good question. But unfortunately, that question or the answer to that question is, well, that depends. I know, Pam, you are not helping me. Here's a general rule of thumb. ICP is more about companies and accounts. So guess who tends to talk about these type of things, companies and accounts? Well, salespeople. So if you work very closely with sales, you'll need to know ICP well. Well, if your company doesn't have ICP, the way I would suggest that you go about doing it is look at the top 25 and the 50 accounts. Chances are these accounts are very similar, right? Or they have some sort of similarity across these accounts that you can draw some sort of insight and a conclusion. And then you can create your own version of ICP. On the marketing front, you can also use ICP to further, like I said earlier, to qualify leads before you pass them to the sales team. For example, you may receive the 200 leads a month, and you need to filter them out, right? And one criteria to filter them is based on the technology. It can be based on technographics and the firmographics that we discussed earlier to filter some of the companies out that they are not possibly the ICP that sales would like to engage with. Okay. You can also use ICP to identify accounts for account-based marketing, which is ABM. The buyer persona is critical, very critical for messaging development and the content creation. Why? Think about it. When you create a messaging, that means you are creating certain kind of talking points and you are thinking, hey, what can I say to a specific individual? As if you are communicating with a specific person and you are talking to a specific person, not a company, right? So buyer's persona is very critical for messaging framework. And at the same time, it's also important for creating content. If you're selecting or writing a content, you're obviously creating the content with a specific individual in mind, and you want to write a content that will resonate with them, not a company. So this is why buyer's personas comes in handy, is in terms of creating content, messaging framework, at the same time, the marketing outreach when you are doing the copywriting. In the past, ICP was more commonly used on the sales side, and the buyer's persona are more common on the marketing front. With the digital integration, though, ICP and the buyer personas are equally important for both sales and the marketing today. Okay. So like I said, in the past, ICP tend to be more on the sales side and the buyer's persona tend to be on the marketing side, especially it's very critical on the purchasing journey. But now you need to know both well. If you engage with your sales team, you need to know not only account specific information, which is ICP, but you also need to know about decision makers that the salespeople are engaged with. And another thing to know both well, and you can use both, is media planning. All right. So when you do any kind of media buy on the social media channels or using some sort of ad buying platform, a lot of time you will need to enter the company attributes in addition to the buyer's demographics. So the algorithm can search for lookalike company targets for your media buy. In a way, like I said, you need to know both ICP and the buyer persona to optimize your media plan. So here's a quick recap. ICP is more about company intelligence, firmographics, and technographics. Buyer persona focuses on a set of customers that will buy from you or you will market to. So it's about buyer's demographic, the person's challenges, goals, and aspiration. And in this video, I have shared 2 templates, right, that you can use. One is on ICP, the other one is on buyer persona. And I also talk about when you should use what it has a lot to do with what you do. If you engage with sales, I certainly believe that you need to know ICP very well, especially because that's how salespeople talk. If you create content and messaging, buyer persona is very likely more important than ICP. For media buys and working closely with sales, in both scenarios, you will need both ICP and the buyer's persona. The knowledge will definitely help in terms of optimize your media buy and also enhance your engagement with your sales team. How do you define ICP and buyer's persona? Are my definitions aligned with yours? If not, can you tell me why? And also, what attributes will you add to ICP and the buyer's persona description? And if I miss anything, please let me know. I love to hear from you and also your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed today's coffee break. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and join me next time for the brand new topic. Take care.